Well, good evening. This is Viola Holmes, registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist, back with you again for some nutrition nuggets. So, tonight I actually want to cover some questions that you all have asked. And it's great, Black History Month, we celebrate health and wellness. And so I'm so glad that there are some questions out there. And if you have other questions, please send them in. So I want to get right into the questions here. So I want to make sure I cover them all. So the first one I'll cover is, what's the difference between macro and micronutrients? So that's a pretty detailed question. I wonder who asked that. So macronutrients are the big things in our diet. Think about it. When you want to lose weight, you want to cut down on calories. And so macronutrients provide your body with calories. And you know what they are, right? The first thing people want to cut, carbohydrates. So carbohydrates provide calories, and they want to increase protein. Protein provides calories. And then there's fat. And we talked about fat a couple of weeks ago. So carbohydrates, protein, and fat are what we consider macronutrients because they provide our body with calories. And these are also the vehicles for the micronutrients. So the smaller things like vitamins, they're a micronutrient. They don't provide calories, but they're by way of foods that are going to give us calories. Minerals are also micronutrients. They're smaller and they're packed inside of those calorie sources. Water is also a nutrient. We don't consider it macro or micro, but it provides us with, fluids, and it's an important vital nutrient that our body needs. So when we think about, micro and macro, a lot of times people ask, do I need a vitamin supplement? It's the average healthy adult, if you're eating a diet that's varied in foods, healthy foods, with lots of vitamins, with lots of fruits and vegetables, you're going to get all of those micronutrients that you need, all of those vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and all the other good properties that are in our diet if you're eating well balanced. But often, people, if you kind of assess how they're doing, and they see that maybe they do need to take a supplemental vitamin and mineral. That would be, nothing extreme, but, something that covers 100% of the recommended dietary amounts, not 300 or 400%. So, we get our macro and our micronutrients from a varied diet. And then, so the other question, the next one is, and I thought I saw something pop up. Let me just see here. I had these copied on a little document here on my screen. Okay, and there looks like an activity question came in. So let me get back to food and then I'll look at that one. So, and one of the best ways to get, again, those small nutrients is through a diet with lots of vegetables and fruit. And so there was a question about prune juice. So what we all know about prunes or prune juice is that prunes have a lot of fiber. And that a lot of times when people are not regular or they're having a problem with constipation, they go to prune juice or they eat prunes. And it's definitely a great way to get some added fiber to help regulate that bowel function. Prunes have a lot of fiber. Then if we break those down into prune juice, we lose some of that fiber. So if you can, when you're looking for something for your digestive tract, to aid with constipation, if you can eat a few prunes as opposed to drinking the juice. So now we talk about the big picture again, that first question. So the macronutrient that's in prune juice is pretty much all carbohydrate. There's no fat in prune juice. There's really no protein in it, but it's a carbohydrate source, and it has certain vitamins in it. For example, it's a great source of vitamin C. So we get our macronutrients in there. Fiber is not a macronutrient, but we get a lot of it. Another good thing about having prunes or prune juice is that it has a lot of potassium in it. And potassium is a micronutrient that our bodies need. And we found that potassium has a role in lowering blood pressure. So if you're not on a potassium restricted diet for some reason, like for kidney issues, then having sources of, high potassium sources in your diet can be a great added for blood pressure regulation. Some other things that prunes have, they have lots of B vitamins. So you get lots of micronutrients when you consume prunes or prune juice, along with keeping the bowel regular. And vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, some of these micronutrient vitamins have what we call antioxidants in them. And these antioxidants protect our bodies from inflammation. And inflammation in our bodies can trigger, even heart disease and trigger chronic diseases. So having these antioxidants to help keep our bodies healthy is really important. So I've already named, fiber. I've named vitamin C. That also gives you antioxidants. I've named potassium. 4 really great reasons to make sure, to have some prunes or, other fruit and other vegetables are going to give you some of those micronutrients as well. And guess what? You also get some iron from prunes, which is really the next question. It was about iron. So foods that contain iron, there are a couple different kinds of iron. And iron is a micronutrient, and we look at the macronutrient protein to get iron. So your meats, fish, and the red meats tend to have more iron than our white meats, than the poultry. But certainly, unless you've had testing, that your hemoglobin and hematocrit's low, you don't have to worry about getting mass amounts of iron because a lot of our foods are fortified with iron. So lots of cereals have been fortified with iron. So most of the time, but if you are low in iron, then you're going to pay special attention. But it's not something that people just need to go out and, I need to make sure I get enough iron. If your levels are normal, then that's great because you're having a varied diet. Sometimes, young girls and women can have low iron levels because of menstrual cycles. So sometimes that can be an issue. How many people have been to the Red Cross? You want to volunteer to give blood and you're sent away because your hemoglobin or your hematocrit is too low. So that, can happen because of the cycle was just on or that type of thing. So that's why they really ask young women about their cycle. So we look at protein sources, but you also can get iron from beans and iron from spinach. So that's, just one of the many micronutrients that's in something like spinach, because it also has calcium. And we could go on and on talking about all of the micro things that are in some of the foods that we eat. So what you want to do if if iron is an issue for you, if you're really trying to get your iron levels up, or if next time you go to the Red Cross and to give blood, you don't want to be turned away. You want to make sure your iron level is high. When you have that meat or, that meal with that protein source, that good protein source, have some vitamin C with it. Vitamin C helps our bodies absorb the iron. So if that's an issue for you, you can have some citrus fruit with the meal, maybe a little bit of juice. Kiwi is also a great vitamin C source, some papaya. So those things with iron. So these 2 little micronutrients together can really help to absorb. And some things you want to avoid if you need to make sure you're getting enough iron is having calcium or having dairy products with that iron food. Again, if it's an issue for you. And also caffeinated beverages. So your coffees and your teas, if you have that with that iron source, when you're really trying to boot up your iron level, then that can have an impact on it. Okay. So, just a little example, just based on these questions, you can see how complex healthy eating and nutrition is, but hopefully you can also see how easy it is to get everything that your body needs if you're eating a varied diet with lots of fruits and lots of vegetables in your diet. Because, I've named off at least, 5 or 6 sources of iron, at least 5 or 6 things that prunes do for your body. So it's really about, all the colors, balancing out, those vegetables and those fruit with a good lean protein source or plant-based protein, and having a carbohydrate source as well. You can get all of the macronutrients and micronutrients that your body needs by eating well balanced. Okay, so that's kind of a short way to answer those questions and put it together. And I know hopefully it wasn't too complicated, but again, I hope that the bottom line is that you see that by eating a variety, you get all the things that your body needs. If you're not eating a variety, then maybe it's talking to somebody about, do you need a daily multivitamin with minerals? Again, no more than 100% of the dietary recommendations. Okay, so that kind of the questions that I've gotten so far from the audience. And now I have one question in the chat box. Is walking on a treadmill the same as a daily walking routine? It certainly can be the same. It depends on, how far you're walking, how many minutes that you're walking. But I always go back to, what do you enjoy? What do you prefer? If you enjoy being outside, then by all means go outside. If you like that treadmill, then that's what you want to do. But it's going to be, how far do you go? If it's 20 minutes that you're spending on the treadmill, how far are you going? And if you did that 20-minute walk outside, are you going the same distance? So think about that. And if you have a way to track it, if you have a Fitbit, or maybe you still have an old school pedometer or some way to measure your steps, you could also do that. But whatever works for you is going to be important. So I see another question. What's a good vitamin source of calcium or vitamin D? What's the difference between vitamin D and calcium? Very good question. Okay. So vitamin D. So vitamin D is in our calcium-rich foods, for example, dairy products, right? Drink your milk so that you'll get some calcium. Yogurt, all the dairy products have calcium. Cheeses have calcium. And some vitamin D has been added. The thing about vitamin D is we really need to get vitamin D from the sun. What's in the foods is not necessarily going to be adequate for a lot of people, particularly this time of year, the winter. And for individuals with darker skin, it's more difficult for us to get the vitamin D that we need. So I always say, try to spend some time in the sun outside, at least with hands exposed, some parts of your body exposed, to get that vitamin D that you need. We see a lot of research that shows that, low vitamin D levels can be a risk for, some chronic diseases. Kind of the research goes back and forth, but the bottom line is that vitamin D is definitely something to pay attention to from sunlight. If you're able to, have your vitamin D level drawn. For people who have diabetes or a chronic condition, often insurance will pay for it. But the issue is that, with a lot of things, insurance doesn't necessarily want to cover just a healthy individual, a vitamin D level. It can be pretty expensive. So make sure that you're getting your time in the sun, getting those sources of calcium. If you're not a dairy person, again, vegetables like spinach are a great source of calcium, all the different greens. So you can get it in other ways when you have a variety. But calcium definitely come in the diet. Vitamin D needs some more help with being out in the sun. So another reason to go out there and walk, and not always use the treadmill, but to get outside. Okay. What's the difference between beans? String beans, lima beans, pork and beans. Well, string beans, some people say string beans, some people say green beans. They're considered a non-starchy vegetable. So our string beans or our green beans are very low in calories. They have lots of vitamins and nutrients. Whereas we get to like starchy beans, like Great Northern beans, pinto beans, the pork and beans that were mentioned, they're a source of starch. So they're going to have more fiber in them. And those type of beans can also be considered a legume. They also have protein in them. So your dried beans, your legumes are, packed with fiber and protein, and they're a starch source, whereas string beans are non-starchy. So not as many nutrients in them, but still a good lower calorie choice. And for people who maybe are watching their blood sugars, if they have diabetes, you can have an unlimited amount of string beans or green beans, but the starchy beans, not so much. You have to watch those portions. And also for both kinds, how are we cooking them? How do we season them? And if we think about heart health, this Black History Month and Heart Health Month, seasoning more with, instead of the pork, some smoked turkey if you want to have meat, or there's the liquid smoke, or a low sodium broth, or finding a way that we're not going to increase the fat or add too much fat to what's a really great food for us with lots of vitamins and minerals and fiber sources. So I think that's all the questions for tonight. If there are any other questions, please send them in. I'm happy to answer them, but the bottom line again is to eat well balanced. We talked about eating out. Hopefully you've built in some strategies for making better choices when you're eating out, or limiting how many times a week you're eating out. We've covered heart healthy choices this month as well, and maybe reducing some of those hard fats and reducing some of those processed foods. So hopefully you're building some, not just listening, but incorporating some new things into your lifestyle. And we also have talked about grocery shopping this month. So, sticking to that list for calories, for health, as well as for budget. I hope that these tips have been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, take care. God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye.